Welcome to the Simply for Life podcast. I'm Bethany Gettis, your host, with former diet and health nurse turned certified holistic nutritional consultant with over 16 years of expertise in the health and wellness field. I'm here with Bruce Sweeney, Simply for Life founder and integrative nutritionist with over 30 years of expertise. Join us on the Simply for Life journey as we explore nutrition, hormonal balance, and well-being for a healthier, longer life. Welcome to the show, Bruce.
Thanks, Bethany. Exciting, great topic today.
Today, we're going to talk about how to lower your blood pressure naturally. And I think a lot of people need this one.
Yes, and it's a very important one. I think that, if we can, out of this segment today, if we can really shift our attention into looking less at the scale and more at your blood pressure, because it's an important number. It can be a life and death number. I mean, from your medical career as a nurse, so forth, so on, we both know how important this number is.
It is. This is something definitely that I used to see all the time, and definitely challenges I see with clients today. And I think a lot of it contributes to sort of a huge amount of stress for sure, poor diet, lack of physical activity, and just trying to find ways to sort of naturally lower it for themselves. So kind of my question to you on this is, what are some more of the effective dietary changes people can actually do to naturally lower their blood pressure?
All right. Well, first of all, there's 20,000 different tribes out there. And one of the reasons they all have benefit is because people cut the crap, whether you go on paleo, Mediterranean, low carb. They all have an impact. The number one thing I can say is just cut out ultra processed food. And then second, interchange your sweet drink, sugary drinks to more water. Drink more water. That is the first approach, because you and I, as we know, we've made, not you and I, but our industry has made nutrition so complicated now that people are more confused. But everybody's on board. They understand processed food or fast food.
Yeah.
Fast food is a fast way to really derail with your blood pressure, right? So start having more wholesome food like fruits, vegetables. Don't have to be picky. You don't have to eat organic. Have good quality nuts of that kind, good quality animal protein, so forth, so on. But yeah, cut out ultra processed food and start drinking more water. We have so many people that are dehydrated in Canada right now.
It's amazing just because, you think it's such a simple thing to say, cut out processed food, but you don't realize the amount of packaged processed foods, especially at the grocery store. They're becoming more convenient. So, they put everything at eye level too. So obviously when you buy something, they're paying more to have it at eye level for you to buy. But yes, I always suggest too, like the produce, it's quick, it's easy. There's only one ingredient. It's basically that. And it's fresh, it's natural. And a lot of the times people kind of think because the labeling of food, it says healthy, it says natural, as you know, it isn't, it's man-made. It's put together with lots of chemicals and ingredients to have it look the way it does or taste the way
Food-like product. Yes. And it's approved. It could be approved by Heart and Stroke. Doesn't mean it's good for your blood pressure. I used to say this, and I still say this every now and then. Sometimes you're better off eating the box than what's in the box when it comes to food.
You might get some fiber.
Yeah, they might have the fiber. At least it'll be good for their bowels, right?
Yeah, that's hilarious. But it is. And actually, I find the worst offender one is for children, is because everything is made with coloring and it's smiley faces on things, and just it's all geared just to appeal to children as well. So there's a huge component with nutrition, I think, for blood pressure. What I've also seen is the amount of stress in the last few years. So how does stress impact someone's blood pressure, and what would you say is like more of a natural strategy would you sort of recommend for managing your stress effectively?
Well, let's talk about stress. First of all, stress, we all know, increase our stress hormone cortisol. That itself can align you to have insulin resistance and having all kinds of metabolic disorders, having issues with blood glucose. That also increase blood pressure. It also stress can increase your visceral fat. Visceral fat is the fat around the organs. That again can increase blood pressure. Stress also has a huge impact on our gut health, what we talk about, but the integrity of our gut, on how we absorb and digest food. Again, stress can also deplete, we'll talk this later on, magnesium and potassium.
Mm-hmm.
Huge importance as far as. And stress, not only that, has an impact on your parasympathetic nervous system. So therefore, you're not producing those hormones. And on top of that, it offsets for women the ratio of estrogen and progesterone. And for men, it basically makes testosterone less bioavailable, and we need testosterone.
Mm-hmm.
So stress is a precursor. Let's face it, if you don't manage stress, stress is a precursor to cardiovascular disease and a lot of other issues, especially when it comes to blood pressure. So just learning to go outside and walk. You don't have to have a gym membership.
Mm-hmm.
Just to take that 20 minutes little walk, just to learn to disconnect, to reconnect, shut down those blue rays or shut down the phone and go and breathe, meditate. Now we have personal fitness club and fitness centers at every corner of the street. We have parks, we have everything, but we got more disconnected and hooked on scrolling than ever before.
Yeah.
And on top of that, the environment we choose to be in many times is something we can do about, right? I tell my clients to pick on them sometimes. I'll be like, this and that's going on at work, and my sister this, or my colleague. I said, I'll leave you with that today. You get what you tolerate.
Right. And what I've noticed is there seems to be an underlying sometimes of chronic stress, not just acute of sort of something happening and yes, you feel it, but what I've noticed in helping clients is that they're living at like a chronic stress level, like you said, like it's like a beeline for like 10 years. And they say, I'm not stressed out, but really they're living in that kind of every day. So they've kind of become used to it for themselves. And like you said, it does stress like plays a factor because it depletes what's really happening in the body. It depletes minerals, vitamins, everything. You feel so drained. And, just in general, like you don't want to work out because you feel stressed, and people have that as well. And then you don't eat very well. And it kind of is that like catalyst that keeps going.
Well, it's exactly. And what we don't say about stress, it affects your sleep. Your sleep, again, is the catalyst of your moods towards food, your behavior towards food and exercise. You and I, we had a couple of days, I'm sure this year, we were tired, and going to gym, you're not as motivated, right? We've adopted this lifestyle, which is fine, but there's all kinds of tools, but you got to start somewhere. And a little bit of stress every now and then, it's good for you. Actually, I'm not saying that I'm wishing stress on people, but a little bit of stress is good. It's just when you have that time over time, it becomes chronic stress, significant impact on our vascular and our cardiovascular system.
Yeah, I find that that's a pretty predominant one, definitely dealing with clients. And when you mention sleep, that definitely comes up too, is that they're usually not sleeping very well either. And just as you said, like the blue light with the phones, iPads in bed, watching TV. Definitely, I think if you are chronically not able to sleep and you are struggling in that sense, removing those out of your room for sure.
Yes, and it's amazing. There's many arguments, right? Just look at the cholesterol. Is it the villain? It looks like it's not the villain it was supposed to be. Some say it's the villain. But one thing it's non-negotiable is stress causes cardiovascular disease.
Yeah.
Think about it. Mental health, right? So managing your stress, and you don't really have to go really out of your way. It's making those small footsteps. I mean, this time of year, I'm not too sure about that. I'm sure the leaves have color, the color of the leaf has changed.
Oh, yeah.
Just go outside and explore the color of nature. It's amazing what it does to our mind. And that way, fresh air, we have better sleep. Just that, it's a huge impact. Better than pretty much any drugs you can take out there. Nature is pretty good for us.
Nature therapy. There you go.
Yeah.
We talked about this before, kind of the role of magnesium and potassium. I kind of want to have that explained to the listeners here. So kind of how do you explain the role of potassium and magnesium in blood pressure, like regulation, and how can individuals ensure that they're actually getting enough of these minerals?
Okay. Well, I promise I'm not going to make this complicated. We laughed this morning because I found an old video that I'm talking about potassium,
Yeah.
52 minutes.
Oh my goodness. It's a long time.
But back in the days, people were listening, right?
Yeah.
So potassium in the wall of our blood vessels, it helps it relax and dilate, so to speak, right? And potassium also, what it really has the ability is help with blood flow. Potassium, why it's so important is not only that it prevents heart attack or any of these events, but it significantly prevents from stroke. We know that for sure. So we know that potassium has a direct impact on our blood flow, our vascular wall, blood vessels walls. Magnesium, there's still some argument, and some studies will say magnesium hasn't any direct benefit on blood pressure. Well, I think it's time to change because there's tons. Because magnesium might not have a direct impact, but it lowers cortisol level. It helps you calm down. It has a positive effect on your immune system. It has a positive effect on glucose and insulin, which contributes to blood pressure. It has a wonderful effect on helping you sleep better, having that restorative sleep. Everybody talk about, you hear a lot, it has over 300 enzymatic function. Well, who knows all those enzymatic function? Yeah. But what we know for sure is that we're depleted in both potassium and magnesium.
Yeah.
We drink too much coffee, we love our coffee. Depletes potassium, magnesium. We drink too much wine and alcohol. Depletes it again. We have leaky gut now. It's estimated, some of the researchers were saying the other day, they estimate 70% of the population could have leaky gut. That's significant.
Yeah.
We eat the wrong food that just don't have those important minerals and nutrients that can really support our vascular health. And on top of that, we just talk about stress, which depletes it too. So I can't say how the importance, and then we can supplement with it. Magnesium, I think it's important that we supplement with it because we're just not getting enough in our food. We can still get in our food. But potassium, everybody, when you talk about potassium, I got to have more bananas. Well, banana is not the best source.
Yeah, there's others.
Potassium, right? But you look at Swiss chard, yams. I say yams right now because they're selling, I'm not going to name a store, sweet potatoes, but they're not sweet potatoes. They're yams. They're still very healthy, beneficials, right? We were making a chili the other day, white beans. White beans are an excellent source. And then we have fish, we have salmon. We're a big fan of salmon. So these are all good source, but they're multifunctional for blood pressure because as you know yourself, it contains beyond potassium, right? It has all these commingling nutrients into it that can help with your blood pressure. So I think it's important to have these food on a regular basis for blood pressure. And I think when it comes to potassium and magnesium, these are the two superstars.
Yeah. I just wanted to sort of put a warning out there too, because we used to deal with people taking potassium and it was medically supervised. So just with potassium, people don't go running out and buying it with any kind of supplement in a sense. I think a lot of people think, oh, I need to use this, and then don't really understand the mechanism of sort of what they're taking.
Well, you've seen probably a lot of issues with slow K. That's why we don't sell it at our store here physically, because somebody comes in for potassium, we like to have a conversation with them, right?
Right. Yeah. So again, magnesium is a great one. Potassium, I would say get it through your food as much as possible, like the foods that Bruce was talking about. And I think that's a great way to kind of get it in. A lot of clients I see are very much lacking in potassium. Like you said, the leaky gut stuff is just, I've noticed a huge increase in people not being able to digest their food properly. Again, it's like the stress relates to it.
Yep.
And all of a sudden they're not actually absorbing their food and they're symptomatic. And I just find that magnesium is a really great one because it really calms the nervous system down and helps sleep. And that's the first thing I notice with a lot of people. And I use it myself too, is it helps you sleep and it just kind of regulates your nervous system a little bit more. So I think that's a great one.
It's a night table supplement. You
Yeah.
take it first thing in the morning and right before going to bed. If you have a lot of stress in your life, I mean, how can you start even better than magnesium, having magnesium? And
Mhm.
it's one of those that has proven the test of time now. We see the
Mhm.
benefits.
Yeah, definitely. So what other stuff in terms of like physical activity, in terms of like when you talk to somebody who has like a blood pressure issue and then they're like, well, can I work out? Should I be working out? What kind of exercises should I be doing? What would you say are the best types of exercises most beneficial for somebody that is struggling maybe to lower their blood pressure, but don't want to like, have an issue happen, obviously?
Okay, to all the fitness enthusiasts and the trainer out there, don't bite the messenger. Uh, I'm absolutely a fan of exercise. But when it comes that I know you have an issue with blood pressure, I'm not a fan of starting with HIIT workout, Tabata protocol, anything high intensity, because
Yeah.
I don't know the health of your arteries. You have soft plaque. I don't know your history. So these are all good. I like to try exercise intense, but I will say start with the number one exercise in the world, walking. Go
Hmm.
outdoor, outdoor nature. Anybody can do it, right? Breathing, learning to breathe from the nose, as opposed of mouth breathing. But I think the act of walking itself, I'm such a fan because it's never disappointing me with 32 years of practice, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and you can get in big argument because there's some people that are really, really into swimming and some are into jogging. But I'm not a fan at the beginning to elevate your heart rate
Yeah.
through the roof, right? I make sure that if they can, and you'd be surprised, this actually happened. We had nothing to do with blood pressure, but I got a client that started walking 2 weeks ago. We're doing our restorative detox. And just like walking, her heart rate was at 130 heart rate per minutes, right?
Gosh.
But again, severely obese,
Right. Yeah.
lots of inflammation, huffing and puffing. So just to say, I mean, imagine I would have got her to go on a spin bike or anything as such.
Right.
Plus, they're less likely to be disappointed. I like to build baby step with my
Yeah.
clients. So walking is my first rule of thumb. You can walk anywhere. You can walk at the mall. If it's raining, if you can walk at the mall, you can walk outside, but walk in nature. Best
Yeah.
environment.
It's you got to be, I guess, you got to be aware of where your client's at, because if you said
Yep.
they're severely obese, you're not going to have them go run around the block and do a jog because their heart's going to be so impacted, right? I find a lot of clients are not obese and they have high blood pressure.
Yep.
um, and they're not used to doing like hard workouts. So I usually suggest, like yourself, not starting in that industry where basically you're just like high intensity and then all of a sudden you're go go go. Like you said, the walking, never disappointment. You always get somewhere when you're walking, especially in nature and breathing in
Yes.
that fresh air and everything. A lot of the times when I have clients in that aspect, it's usually they're kayaking or they're doing something where they're sort of mobile a bit, but they're not fully kind of doing something, or like sitting on a electric bike or something. So they're sort of intermittently doing it,
Yeah.
low key swimming, not strenuous swimming, and sometimes just like yoga, meditation. That's kind of like where we start as well with that. So
It's a good baseline. You just can't go wrong with that. Low impact sometimes has the best impact too, right?
exactly. The other one we didn't bring up for the minerals and everything is how important is sodium in terms of like table salt, because there's a lot of controversy out there with the types of salt that we can use. Are there specific foods that you suggest avoiding, or actually adding in terms of like the salt? Because that's the first thing where a client comes to me and says, my doctor said I can't have salt, but there's many different types of salts.
Yeah. Well, the number one you want to avoid at all costs is table salt. It's pulverized, it has dextrose, it's bleach, sodium chloride. When it comes to sodium, sodium is all the same. Doesn't matter, it's a million salt, kosher salt. But the type of salt we're getting, that's what makes a difference.
Hmm.
First, I absolutely don't believe in low sodium. I think it's causing more problem than anything. Second, the incidence of cardiovascular disease with people with low sodium is far higher than ones with high sodium. Third, the evidence is extremely poor when it comes to sodium and blood pressure. Now, if you never had sodium and you start having sodium today for the next couple of days, of course, you're going to hold water. You might see a little difference in your blood pressure. We need sodium. It's extremely important. And the College of Cardiology says around 1,500 to 2,300 milligrams per day. In my clients, if you do Simply for Life, eat well, right? Don't have. In our plan, in the food, they'll get about 300 milligrams. So I tell them to use a teaspoon of salt, of Himalayan salt per day, because that's about 1,300 milligrams of sodium. You're still at 1,600. But me personally, I consume about 4,000 milligrams of sodium per day. That's what works for me. I put salt on all my food. Every client of mine, if they want to lower their blood pressure, I said that starts with putting salt on your food. Well, I don't eat salt. I know, and you have blood pressure issue. But I take time to educate them, because just like having fats many years ago, I cannot eat fats, Bruce, I'll gain fat. Isn't it weird that you eat fat, it improves your fat and your triglyceride level. You eat sugar, and the same thing, it all seems like it's the opposite, but it's coming down to having real whole food. So to make this simple, I'm a big fan of kosher salt or Himalayan salt. Why? Because they contain the least amount of environmental contaminants. Himalayan salt is not a superfood, but some industry will say it's a food because it has many trace minerals, which are important, so forth, so on. It's just a good quality of salt that you should have part of a healthy lifestyle. And if you look also with the correlations of low sodium and not heart attack or stroke, but cardiac arrest, your heart is a muscle. And I think, honestly, there's a correlation with people that are not regular with their bowels, they're constipated, with blood pressure too.
Interesting.
And salt can basically resolve about 30 to 40% of that. So what I'm saying is that don't go zero salt. This is the same idea that some voice or influencer says our carbs are bad for you and you go zero carb. Yes, you'll lose weight, but think about long term. And for me, my clients are not sodium sensitive. So if they go to a restaurant and they're not too sure of the sodium, they're not going to hold 2, 3, 4 pounds of water the next day, because their body is just like, okay, I'm used to sodium. I'm not freaking out today, right? So we need sodium. Sodium is good for breaking down protein. We're in a generation now that we've accepted we need more protein. I'm sure some are going way too high, but we need sodium to break down protein. And sodium is extremely important for blood pressure also.
That's a huge point, I think. And it's just interesting that you brought that up in terms of the comparing it to sort of the healthy fat industry. Cause like that was totally where I was thinking, it's kind of the misinformation of like when people say, you know, fat is bad for you. So it's not saying like the trans fat in man-made food is bad for you. It's like every fat, right? And even the healthy fat. And then it's kind of saying the same thing with the sodium, is that basically all salt should be off the table. But like you said, kosher salt, Himalayan salt is probably the best ones to go with, and get rid of the table salt.
And here's what, if you want to make your food more appealing, it conveys flavors. Salt tastes better.
Yes.
And the thing I want to finish off is like, now when you visit your doctor or cardiologist, they're wonderful. Maybe not all of them, but they're wonderful. They care about you, but they didn't study nutrition. They're medical doctors. You and I spend years studying nutrition. So you cannot really blame them to think they know everything. This would be like going to see your car mechanic and asking them, should you have 3 eggs or 4 eggs?
Yeah.
Because you eat eggs, right?
Right.
Doesn't make him an idiot. He's an excellent car mechanic, but he didn't study nutrition. And there's no difference with physicians. They will admit it. They have zero education on nutrition. It's what old guidelines told them 30, 40, 60 years ago, right?
Yeah. So it's very outdated information. And generally as well, I've noticed through media and also like Googling Dr. Google all the time and things like that, people are kind of coming to me with those same notions that, oh, well, I thought it was bad, or it's generalized, right? So this is the information, the facts, people.
Yep.
So other than salt, are there any other kind of herbs or supplements that you would find more effective in sort of supporting somebody with high blood pressure, say?
Yes. Well, first of all, I think you should check your vitamin D3, your level,
Okay.
right? It's important. It does have an influence on blood pressure. One that nobody talks about is melatonin. Melatonin and can help with your sleep because sleep, blood pressure, cardiovascular disease. If you have poor nutrition, so forth, and so on, B complex can help also. But I want to finish off with our audience also understanding, because I cannot say how important and why we just don't sell it here as a supplement. I'm not against it. The number one supplement, but it should come from food that has an impact on blood pressure, non-negotiable, is potassium.
Mm-hmm.
But it should be more like potassium via food, but we know now the industry and also people are very confused and they just don't know what to eat. But for sure, one you can take is magnesium. I'm a big fan of my magnesium glycinate. It's more bioavailable.
Mm-hmm.
And then one that everybody forgets, especially we have a statin nation. More and more people are using statin for lipids. So they're depleting their Coenzyme 10. So Q10, if you're taking statins or blood pressure medication, is wonderful. And I will say this also on potassium, why it's so important to eat these food I was mentioning, kale, yam, white beans, salmon, tuna also. Isn't it ironic when you think about this coming from your background that many people for blood pressure are prescribed diuretics or certain blood pressure medication that actually depletes their potassium? So the
Yeah,
importance on them, it's kind of playing catch-22, right? It really truly depletes their potassium. So adopting these food, coming to visit myself or yourself, and having just a clear understanding where they can get it, because you'll get potassium from a supplement, but in your food, you'll get all kinds of other nutrients, and you're nourishing yourself, you're feeling better, you get more energy.
definitely. Now, the last thing regarding this is more so weight, because this is where I usually see the high blood pressure coming in, but there are people that are not struggling with weight. But the people that are, how does the weight contribute to blood pressure control? And what tips do you have for clients struggling with their weight management?
Yeah. Well, now we used to be really solely like if you're overweight, you're obese, it has an impact on your endothelial cell, right? Um, to produce this very important gas called nitroxic oxide, which helps dilate your blood vessels. Being overweight also has a huge impact on your hormones.
Mm-hmm.
So that is, without a fact, critical when it comes to manage blood pressure. Being overweight also affects your digestive systems. People don't see the connection with your digestive system and blood pressure. It's significant. Uh, but also, you don't have to be overweight. You can be slim,
Mm-hmm.
but skinny fat.
Mm-hmm.
I had a client, again, because we measured this here at our practice. I've had a really, really state-of-the-art scale. And sure enough, because she had more fat, her ratio of fat and muscle was totally off the chart. This is a person, Bethany, weighing 127 pounds, okay?
Right.
And her visceral fat was 15,
Hmm.
pretty high in the chart,
Yeah.
which tells me that these are right there key marker. There's a good chance she probably has fatty liver disease.
Right.
Then whether you're overweight or slim now, we now know that both of them have a huge impact on non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which is now the chief driver of liver disease. And it's all caused by refined carbohydrates, processed food, poor diet.
Right.
So I think that we need to take the message that it's now more like poor lifestyle.
Yeah.
Yeah, not exercising, but mostly how we nourish ourselves is one of the chief contributor to blood pressure. And a chief driver to reduce blood pressure is lifestyle.
And you think about how often you do that throughout your lifetime. And as much as what you just said, people can say, well, I'm only this much weight and I'm not overweight. It's not about the number on the scale. It's,
Bingo.
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing that a lot of people are very unaware of in terms of having chronic health conditions is that it doesn't have to always do with weight. There can be people that are very thin looking and they still have a lot more health complications again. So it's the lifestyle, the food, everything. So thank you for sharing that encouraging words with us today, Bruce. Really appreciate it for the listeners.
Yes, and I'm hoping out of this, if there's one advice I would suggest, we kind of start on this, Bethany. Yeah, I know you're watching a number on a scale, but for you and I, it tells a different story. Take the
Hmm.
challenge, get your blood pressure checked. If you
Yeah,
have the white coat syndrome, go to the pharmacy, find a friend, get a cuff, measure it. Learn how to measure your blood pressure. It's a life-saving number.
it is definitely. And it's something that goes unrecognized. And I think a lot of people think, oh, I'm healthy, I'm fine. But when they actually get their blood pressure checked, they can be quite surprised sometimes.
Yes. And I'm just throwing an extra bonus. Surround yourself with people who can laugh. Laughing
Definitely.
reduce blood pressure actually and secrete nitric oxide.
Definitely. So watch some funny movies, people.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Exactly. Well, that was great. Thank you so much, Bruce. The links to the supplement store is in the notes here for everybody, including all of our contact details. Don't forget to share this episode with your family and friends, and stay tuned for more on the Simply for Life journey. In good health, everybody.
Thank you.